Wait,
We're live. We're live.
We are live.
hello and welcome into the Make It Take It podcast. Today is Wednesday, April 3rd. Sorry, a little bit of a hiccup on the start there, but we're good. We got all the energy. I'm your host today, Matthew Byrne, joined by John Yaley, as well as Ethan Mazel. Guys, how we doing today?
Pretty good. Baseball season started. My Tigers are cool 4-0. I know that's a sore subject, Matt.
Yeah.
Being a Mets fan. But
Yeah, the Mets got rained out on back-to-back nights. I think if you're a Mets fan, as I am, that's probably a good thing. 0-4, 8 runs in 4 games with a $300 million payroll. So that's good. Ethan, what about you? You're kind of quiet over there.
I'm good. We had some nice cookies earlier. There's some good cookies out here.
And some coffee.
I don't like coffee, but there were good
okay.
cookies.
You don't like coffee?
You don't like coffee? I feel like you're
No,
always busy. You're always
coffee's
doing
gross.
something.
I'm not a coffee guy.
I don't need that caffeine.
You know what, though? I feel like it'd be kind of crazy if you guys had coffee. Like, I want to, be around you for the first 30 minutes to
The
see
energy.
what would happen. Yeah, like if you
I don't
guys
need
were
that
just,
energy.
You're just locked
I
in
just-
all the time.
I wake up.
All right, well.
Right,
I'm up.
Yeah,
I'm
dude,
up.
we're just
One
raw dogging
more.
live, dude.
Okay, so there's 2 more things of discussion before we go into the NBA. First thing is Eclipse. This
Yeah.
podcast is taking place on Indiana University Bloomington campus. Good Path of Totality on Monday. From sources, it's expected that anywhere from 300K to 700K will be here.
Sources.
Per sources. So that's pretty crazy. It's going to be a madhouse probably over the weekend. And the second is I went and watched Dune last night. Dune 2. Have you guys
Really?
seen that?
I
How was
did.
it?
I
Yeah.
did not. Was
I-
it good?
Thoughts?
I liked it. I thought it was a very solid movie overall. I had a few notes and kind of some gripes here and there, but overall very solid film. The battle scenes, the score, and also the scenes where they're riding the sandworms,
Mhm.
all those big picture scenes are.
What?
It's very
Like
cool.
Sandworm?
No, it makes sense if
Yeah.
you watch the movie.
I've seen
Uh,
the memes. I didn't watch the movie, but
so-
I have.
Yeah, Matt, I'm guessing you've seen the first.
I have, yeah.
What were your thoughts on that?
On the first,
Yeah. I'm
Um,
kind of lukewarm. I have to be. I really liked the second, but the first I feel like really limited, all set up. I know this is a little inside Dune.
No, I've heard the first was not good.
I agree with you. Where it's
I think
just,
the first was a necessary setup.
I agree.
It's a necessary setup. The ending and the timing of it was a little odd, but hey, now that I watched the second, I get it. I get why. Whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's all good.
Enough,
All
that's
right.
enough, Dune.
Yeah, enough Dune. We got the NBA to talk about. Yesterday, pretty good slate of games, at least close games. The Wizards upset the Bucks.
Yeah.
by
Big
4.
Dub.
Big dub for the
Oh,
Wizards.
yeah, big up for you.
Giannis.
Big
had a
dub
huge
for
game,
Ethan.
too.
They're,
Yeah, well, it didn't matter. The
Yeah.
Wizards are still going to win.
hey, they're
The
cooking.
the Nuggets home win over the Spurs by 5 points kind of gave them a challenge there. Good West Coast battle with the Kings and the Clippers. But yeah, no, got a lot of news for you today, especially because there's some prevalent injury news to talk about with some players coming back and how that's going to affect teams moving forward. Not that much time left in the regular season. And I will fully admit that I'll kick it off and fully admit that I was completely wrong last week or 2 weeks ago. I think it was last week when I said that the Knicks are going to compete for that 3rd spot and now slid into 5th with 3 straight losses. But I mean, brutal for the Knicks. Friday, overtime loss at the Spurs. Sunday, 1-point loss.
That was
against the
Crazy
Thunder.
Spurs loss.
Yeah, and
Runs at what, 62?
yeah,
61,
and
61, yeah.
It was
and
still crazy.
also that 1-point game with the Thunder, the game winner, and then kind of brutal loss, 10-point loss against the Heat on Tuesday.
Yeah, I mean, rough going for the Knicks. Although Mitchell Robinson is back, which is ultimately, I think, a good thing. Although Hartenstein had a great game the other day. The one day Mitchell was pretty limited. The biggest news this morning, though, Steve Clifford is resigning.
Mhm.
Hornets longtime coach in his second stint with the team. This is only his second season. They're pretty terrible
Yeah,
this year.
unsurprising.
They're pretty bad. 18-57 this year. Last year they were 27-55. So they took it an even further step back, which is not what you want to do. I thought Steve Clifford was an okay head coach, but he's stepping down because he probably was gonna get let go at the end of the season anyways. Wanted to regain some of his dignity there. But I like the Hornets' outlook into the future in general with the players they got.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny. They're kind of they kind of snuck under the radar as a really bad team. The Wizards, Pistons, and a little bit of the Spurs kind of took their shine as the really bad tanking teams. But Hornets, like you said, 18-57, 240 win percentage. They're 41 games back of the Celtics. And I do like you said, I do like some of the young players, especially Brandon Miller. LaMelo, I have my questions on if this guy will ever be healthy. I don't think he's going to be the long-term guy, but Brandon Miller is definitely a piece, like a very good asset moving forward.
Yeah, well, the Hornets right now are in 13th in the East, so 18-57. Yeah, so that's kind of brutal. They've lost 3 straight, but taking a look at the East playoff picture, no one cares about the Celtics because they're just on the moon. Bucks in the 2, Cavs in the 3. They've held on to it. It was also wrong. I thought they were going to fall out. Magic getting that 4 spot tied with the Knicks because the Knicks have been, playing poorly as of late. But some teams, 6 through 8, Pacers, Heat, 76ers, they've been on a few win streaks. So, big news yesterday with the return of Joel Embiid, reigning MVP. He comes back against the Thunder, scores 24 points, was perfect at the line, led the team in assists. Just a really big win, 4-point win. And kind of massive news for the team looking forward. There's not that much time in the regular season left, but the race in the East is pretty close. It's pretty tight. Right now, the 76ers are in the 8, which means that, play in, potentially have to face the Celtics, but they're only 1 game back from the 7 and also 2 games back, from the 6 as well to try to avoid having to play the Pacers. But, you never really know because, the Heat went on a tear.
Yeah, I mean, the Heat play the Pacers on April 7th, which I think that's really sort of the who gets in game. I could see both teams just winning every game up to that. The Heat play the Sixers and the Rockets and then the Pacers, which that could be another 2 games into that Pacers game. And I think ultimately the Heat do not want to be in the play-in. I think last year was Cinderella run. I really like the Heat. I like everything they've done there. But if this team wants to try and make another long run, the play-in is not the place to do it. There's too many variables. You lose 2 games and you're done. That's it. Your season's over. I think the Heat really desperately trying to get back into that 6 spot, and the Pacers could lose it. They're only 6-4 in their last 10.
Yeah, I think the Sixers, you would hope to get the 6th seed. Just looking at their schedule, it is kind of doable. Obviously, it's going to be a little dependent on the teams above them. But obviously, as Ethan said, they play the Heat tomorrow. But then Grizzlies, Spurs, Pistons, Magic, Nets is the rest of their schedule. Magic kind of the only playoff viable team there. So you could have some optimism as a Sixers fan. Plus, at the end of the day, obviously, the Sixers and Embiid himself have had their share of playoff issues. But, with the team that is really talented, that was on if the Celtics didn't exist, like a 1 seed pace pre-Embiid injury, if you get to full strength, even if you are this, obviously you don't want to play Boston, but the 7 or 8 seed, you'd feel good just having Embiid at full strength, even if you can't avoid the play-in. So a little higher on the Sixers than I've been in the past, especially because Embiid did look pretty good last night.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does bring a pretty interesting predicament for the 76ers because, like I said, they're only, 1 or 2 games back from the 6th spot, but it also is kind of a question of how much do you want to play Embiid in that race? You obviously don't want him to have to re-aggravate an injury, but you also want to make that push where you don't have to go play the Celtics in round 1. I mean, having him back is definitely a big morale boost for this team, but I still think that if you want to help it, if you can help it, you don't want to have to go play the Celtics. But, it was a pretty insightful article in The Athletic by Mike Vorkunov and Hunter Patterson Tuesday, just about Embiid's thoughts about the injury, how in the past maybe he had some and it was just, get better and rehab. And this one, they said took a really big mental toll. And also, he said in the quote that it was depressing, and he just really wants to be out on the court. So that's very good from a player perspective. The 76ers want him out there too, but I think you also need to, calm a little bit of the emotions of wanting to get back. You don't want to rush it. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
No, I
Yeah.
think you make a good point. He's obviously been injury prone in the past. I think, and I'm not the first person to make this point, but almost the sneaky positive of him being injured, especially if you can't avoid Boston or Milwaukee, is usually Embiid in the past hasn't been 100% in the playoffs. He'll be a little dinged up with something last year. I think he had a knee thing going on throughout the Nets series, and then into the Celtics series. This time off, I think 2+ months. Maybe he's the most rested, the most healthy that he's ever been going into the playoffs. So he almost got the opportunity to kind of, relax, rest, and now he's full strength, not worried about the injury. Obviously, the flip side would be, as Matt pointed out, you rush him back too much, he re-aggravates it, and then it's, kind of the same Embiid story all over again. So it is a tough balance. But if I were them, I would keep playing him, honestly, healthy minutes, try to get the 6th seed, and overall risk it.
Yeah, I mean, this is the fewest amount of games he's played since his fake rookie season. And I like your point. I think him coming back with 2 weeks left gives him enough time to sort of shake off that rust and get back up to 100%. And I could see a world in which this is the best playoff Embiid we've had. I mean, he's only played 35 games this year, like barely any minutes total minutes compared to last season. This could be the most well-rested Embiid that we've seen heading into the playoffs his entire career.
Yeah, I just think the most interesting part about it is that, it's not like the 76ers are in the 8 and it's like, oh, the two teams above them are obviously slumping. I think that's an interesting thing is that, the Heat it seems like they can beat anybody on any given night, and the Pacers have kind of gotten out of their rut, and it seems like they could compete with anybody just with their offense if it gets going. So it's not like the 76ers just have an easy path to be like, we'll be fine with playing Embiid, like, kind of a lot, and stuff like that. I don't know. They might have to push him really hard, and it's just kind of a conversation that you need to have with yourself of how much it's worth it. But good points about that. I guess, only time will tell. It's his first game back. And certainly it probably should, take the load off Tyrese Maxey, who's been, doing the best that he's been able to do over the last 10 games. Kind of sticking with the East and, the whole injury thing, Donovan Mitchell, he's back for the Cavs, but not necessarily what, maybe was going to be expected. He kind of played poorly in 2 games. One was a win to be able to outlast the 76ers, but another was a 30-point loss to the Nuggets. I feel like the Cavs have really relied. I mean, not really. They really have relied on Mitchell this season. But, he was out again last night, with just monitoring that injury. I was wrong about the Cavs last week in saying that I think they're going to take a dip and that the slump is really going to kick in. Like I said, they still have the 3 spot, but I don't know. I don't really think this is looking good for them. I think I'm going to double down. I mean,
no, I'd agree with you. I think.
What are you laughing about?
I like the Cavs.
Yeah,
I
dude,
think
you're just
they're
smirking
good.
over there.
This is a good Cavs team. It's not. Yeah, I mean, they won yesterday. Yeah, they won. They won their last game. So even though he didn't play well, they still won.
Jazz, right?
Yeah. So hey, a win's a win.
Yeah,
when
you could win.
When you're only 1 game back of the Bucks, and the Bucks just lost, and now they cut that gap a little bit. So anything's possible.
I think both things can be true. I think they probably could stick into the 3 seed, but I still wouldn't trust them a lot in the playoffs. Like, I kind of liked the team more last year going into the playoffs, and they got pretty much handled by the Knicks, who weren't, a great team. The Pacers, I'd like them against, but if they played a Miami or a Philly, I would be very nervous if I was a Cavs fan. But they are a game and a half up, and they do kind of have a tough schedule, though. I mean, they play Phoenix, the Lakers, Clippers, Pacers. That'll be a big one. So don't actually love the Cavs' chances of winning a series, but I think they could hang into the 3 seed.
I just think it's really tough for the Cavs if Donovan Mitchell's not playing at his best, and obviously, coming off an injury, you're not really expected to, all the time. I just think the one thing about the Cavs and also the Magic is that, there's no real star power. It seems like for the Magic, I mean, good for them, 7-3 in their last 10, but the scoring is pretty evenly spread out. Some people might say that that's a good thing. I would honestly kind of disagree, and say that it's probably easy to limit certain players and have to force players to do more that maybe aren't used to having to do that in the regular season. I think there's a certain skill and, valuable skill for having a player on your team that even if the other team knows they're going to try to go off, that they can still, kind of do that, and have a player that can be clutch in the fourth quarter. You saw it with Anthony Edwards against the Pacers. I mean, that's the first example that comes to mind. He knew he was going to shoot the ball, and he still did, and he scored 15, of their last 17 points in that one game. So I don't know. Last week I was being a Knicks homer and saying that they were going to be good. Clearly I'm wrong. I am wrong over the last week, but still, I don't know. Just Celtics of Tatum, Bucks, Giannis, Cavaliers, Mitchell, sure. Magic, Banchero, sure, but it's not I don't think it's the same. I mean, the Knicks also have Brunson. I don't think it's the same.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this Magic team has like high expectations for anything. Ultimately, this season was way better than probably anything they expected. They're, top of their division in the playoffs. They're way ahead of schedule on the rebuild. Paolo and Franz are a really good duo, and Markelle Fultz had a nice year too. Ultimately, they probably wouldn't beat most of these playoff teams, especially if they happen to draw the Sixers in the first round. They would probably get killed by the Sixers, but I just don't think they're there yet. And that's totally fine. Like, they don't have to be there yet. Paolo's only in his second season. He's coming off of a great season last year, and he built on that this year. He's, I believe, a better shooter this year than he was last year. I think they're ahead of schedule, and that's really just like a perfect situation for them.
So what do you think needs to happen kind of moving forward? I mean, is it like Paolo making a big jump, more pieces? What's your take?
I mean, you just got to build on it. They have their pick for this year, although it's not a very good pick. I think they have the money to spend in free agency that they could add a nice veteran piece, not necessarily a superstar. I think you're probably like 2 years removed from like needing a superstar to go over the hump. But this is an overall like pretty young, solid team that could, really put something together there. I mean, the oldest player in this team is Joe Ingles and Gary Harris, and they don't play at all. But other than that is Markelle Fultz, who was drafted 6 years ago. So this is just a really young team throughout the entire roster.
I'd like to give the Magic a little love. Push back on the
Finally.
state. Yeah, I'm
Y'all just dissing
John
on
just
her.
looked at me and I am afraid like I've never been before. You just turned and oh no.
Yeah, no, I'm a fan of this Magic team. Just to cover the kind of scoring point Matt made, I agree with you, especially come the playoffs. You want that star player, that go-to guy late in the game. But I think the counter would be, and you could almost say this about the Cavs too, but the Magic are a defensive team. They're second in defensive rating. They're only the 23rd best offense. So it's not like if they play their brand of basketball come the playoffs, they don't necessarily need a guy that's consistently dropping high 20s, low 30s, closing the games for them. If they just play their solid defense, to have the kind of, solid athletic young team on offense, that might be good enough. And in terms of them going forward, I do agree with Ethan that they have the cap space to get, like not a star, but I've heard Malik Monk thrown around, some piece.
Yeah, nice 3-and-D guy.
Yeah, add a little offense, a little, spacing on the floor. You can never have enough shooting. And, just as Matt pointed out, just Paolo's only going to get better. I'm nervous Franz has hit a bit of a plateau, but you hope he improves. Suggs is still young. And just those young guys improve while you add a veteran piece or two. And in a year or two, you are, much better. They are ahead of schedule. So if they were to lose round one, it wouldn't be the end of the world. But I do like their chances against the next team, against the Pacers team, that kind of thing.
Right now, if the playoffs started now, they would play the Knicks.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I feel like the Knicks could walk out of that, sort of like the Cavs last year. It's sort of like the same.
I feel like the Knicks would walk.
series.
Because I feel
they
like
can
that's
get out
what.
of that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, good points. Magic are ahead of schedule. I think at least for the playoff picture this year, though, splash of realism that if they play the Knicks, I think they're just going to get walked out of the gym. I mean, that kind of depends on the Knicks injuries, but I just think
I think the Cavs comparison, Cavs Knicks series last year, I don't hate that. I do like this Magic team, so I have a little bit more faith, but obviously, Brunson is better late game than anybody the Magic have, which is an issue. But the counter would be, Knicks teams or Thibodeau teams, they kind of peak in the regular season. I don't know. We'll
Too many
see.
minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
all right. Well, moving over to the West, which is a little bit more of a mess. So kind of save that one for second. Picture right now: Nuggets number 1, Wolves 2, tied with the Thunder 4-3. That was weird. Timberwolves and Thunder are tied. Nuggets are 1. I don't know what I was saying. But it has been moving around. There's been a lot of shifting, moving. Obviously, when the race is this close, 1 win, 1 loss is going to move things around. Kind of good news for the Timberwolves. As of yesterday, Shams reported that Karl-Anthony Towns could be back. Prematurely, I guess, to what the expectation was. And they're 8-2 in their last 10. So clearly, they're finding ways to win without him. I think that the big thing is Naz Reid. He's really stepped up. I mean, I think everybody knew that he could do that with being in the conversation for 6th man of the year and stuff like that. But he's really taken a step up. I mean, he's the second leading scorer behind Edwards, and kind of close too within that margin over their last 10 games. So I know that we were making some picks, a few weeks ago about who's actually going to retain the top of the West, but I do think that with Cat coming back early, I think the Wolves could be kind of the favorite pick. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think if you go to the bottom of the West, the Warriors 5 in a row. They heard the Rockets noise. They heard the Rockets getting hot, and they said, "Not today." 5 in a row. The Rockets, they've lost two straight now. They're sort of 3 games back now. It's looking unlikely for them. The Warriors are probably going to stick in this play-in here for a wonderful 9-10 Lakers-Warriors play-in matchup that we all want to see. And I think a late season push here for the Warriors, you never really know. I never wanted to count out the talent on this team. Ultimately, I think veteran talent will win out in the playoffs. And a lot of these play-in teams for the West are these veteran 2010 superstar basketball players type of teams. I think the play-in for the West could be really, really exciting.
No, I definitely agree with you. If I just want to keep, hating on myself, I said last week that the Rockets were going to overtake the Warriors. So
It looked good.
I think I'm just
good.
going to short. If I say something on the pod, your job is to just short it.
No, you're the Drake curse in real life.
Yeah. If I say anything, just short it. Don't do anything. Just don't follow me is what I'm saying. But yeah, I agree with you. I think last week we were saying how the Lakers, whoever they would play, if they were able to make it out of the play-in and get a top team, that would be a really exciting series. And I also was saying that I was kind of hating on the Warriors, so that's good. So it's kind of a double whammy of being wrong. But no, this is great. I mean, this is great for the NBA that the Warriors have been able to close out some really good wins. Beating the Mavs, outlasting the Mavs, a few other good wins in there. And yeah, it's gonna paint a pretty big storyline, how the 8, 9, 10, the Suns, the Lakers, and the Warriors all kind of have competitive teams now. Before it was kind of just the Suns and the Lakers, but now the Warriors have entered the picture as kind of a veteran team that if they keep playing like this, I mean, they can challenge someone. It's not like I don't think the Lakers could maybe cakewalk it. It's certainly a week ago it seemed like the Lakers could.
Yeah, and if you're a Laker fan, I think you're disappointed with how the past, probably I'd say the weekend to now went. I think I mentioned this on the podcast last week. The Suns, their remaining schedule is incredibly difficult. They still have the Cavs, Timberwolves, Pelicans, Clippers again, Kings, Timberwolves. So there are no easy games there, but they survived some of the tough ones already. They beat the Pelicans on Monday. They beat the Nuggets in Denver last Wednesday. And so if you're a Laker fan, you're probably hoping maybe we're tied with Phoenix on Wednesday, April 3rd, but you're still a game and a half back. You're kind of running out of losses and, potential opportunities. In terms of the Warriors, I am surprised with how well they've been doing. Overall, the second half of the year, but especially the past, I'd say 2 weeks or so, and how they have responded to the Rockets, because I have not loved this Warriors team this year. The depth is questionable. I don't love the size of the team. But at the end of the day, they're still 3 games up. So I think the Nuggets, they had kind of their best possible stretch and still came up short. So I don't think the Warriors are sweating as much as they were last week.
Yeah, I mean, I think whatever angle you look at it, this whole Lakers season is pretty disappointing if you're a Lakers fan. I mean, your 2 best players are pretty much playing nearly every night, although LeBron's missed a little bit, for the first time in years, and you're still fighting to get in the playoffs. I mean, right now it's Lakers Warriors to play the winner, to play the loser of Suns Kings, and then to get the honor of playing the Nuggets in the first round, which is like, I don't really know what you're doing. Like, I don't see any of these 3 teams making it past the Nuggets in a playoff series. I feel like the Warriors probably have the best chance out of the Lakers, Warriors, Kings, Suns.
Really?
Yeah.
Out of everyone there.
This Suns team I don't think is very good. I think the Kings will probably beat them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I definitely
Yeah.
think the Kings will beat them. It's just that from all the teams, the Lakers, Warriors, Kings, and Suns, you think the Warriors have the best chance to beat the Nuggets?
I think there's a real world where the Warriors could take it far.
No,
I don't know if they'd win,
really?
but I think they could take it
Okay,
far.
but honestly, this could be a hot take, and you can call me stupid and crazy. but-
Dude, you're like 0 for 4 with hot takes.
Okay, but this isn't like a, hey, this is what's going to happen. I'm posing a question. I'm trying to cover my back here.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to make predictions. If you go up to the Timberwolves and you have a crystal ball and you say, hey, you're not going to be the 1 seed, do you think they purposely fall to the 3?
Interesting.
I would rather play the Pelicans. I mean, if you go up to them and you say, hey, you're not going to win it. I mean, obviously, the Wolves are going to try to win the conference, but it's like, if I'm the Wolves, like, honestly, Thunder take that.
Yeah, that's why I really like the
And the
Clippers
Thunder is so
spot.
young
Yeah.
that I don't think that the Thunder want to play one of these older teams
No, yeah.
either.
That-
And with the matchups that the Wolves don't want to play one of these teams either as well. I mean, Wolves don't want to go play the Kings. No
Yeah.
way, absolutely not. I would rather, if I'm a Wolves fan, I would rather go play the Pelicans and drop to the 3.
I'd rather play the Kings, actually, because Sabonis has been very questionable
But
in the playoffs.
then you're relying on
Monk
the
is
Kings
out.
win.
No, I understand,
Yeah.
but I'm saying like how you saying crystal ball.
Yeah.
I'd be more scared of the Pelicans, how they've looked the second half of the year, the Monk injury for
but
the
the Kings in a playoff series.
Yeah, but Sabonis was terrible last year in the playoffs.
Dude, but the fight that the Kings showed at home last year, like,
but they were a better team. They were the higher seed.
I know.
I think if I'm Minnesota, I don't think it's a huge difference, but the Pelicans scare me. Obviously, we've never seen Zion in the playoffs, but and I also would say this: I think we're underselling Phoenix, especially like Ethan was saying. Golden State has the
Yeah.
best chance to beat Denver. Phoenix has beaten them twice, or I think twice, and then went to OT in another game. Since the All-Star break, they're kind of the only team that's really consistently matched up with them, even though it is just the regular season. So I do think Phoenix out of the 7 to 10 would be the most dangerous team, but I do think you guys are hyping up the Kings slightly too much. But
I
Slightly
think
too
I
much.
I
mean,
think the
I-
Kings can beat the Suns in a play-in game. And that's why I really like where the Clippers are right now. The Clippers are at 4, and ultimately that gives them. I mean, they'll play the Mavs. The Mavs and Pelicans are tied, so they'll play one of those 2 teams most likely. And I think that's a really good path for them to try and get hot. This is sort of their last, probably like last 2 years of their championship window to try and make something happen here. And I think if they could pull off a nice win, and try and get hot.
I mean, I know that McCollum has playoff experience, and I do get that. I just don't think that Zion has enough of it to the point where.
The Pelicans are sort of Magic West.
Yeah,
That's
it's
actually-
just
that's
a
it's
great
like
way to
it's like
put it.
it's like I feel like the matchup with like what I'm saying, like with the Kings and the Wolves with the Pelicans. Like you would have McCollum and Anthony Edwards, and then the post, you'd have Gobert and stuff like that against Zion Williamson and stuff like that. But I mean, I don't know. I just feel like just with the playoff experience, I would not want to go up against the Kings or really any one of those 7 to 10 teams if I'm the Wolves. And that's the trade-off is what I'm kind of saying. I mean, they're going to try their hardest to play, they're not going to intentionally fall to the 3.
Yeah.
But I think if they had the choice to do it, in that sort of like realm of possibility, I honestly would take it.
This is why the top seed should be able to pick who they play in the playoffs.
What?
Yes,
We're
absolutely.
talking
Why
about-
would you ever?
Why would incentive? I think it's the ultimate play. You incentivize the teams to get the top seeds. So instead of a Denver team, like you're the 1 seed, your prize is you play Phoenix and Kevin Durant, or you're Boston. Now you're playing Joel Embiid and a Sixers team. When in another world you'd pick the Pacers and wipe the floor with them. And also it would add a little beef intrigue. If a team picked like the 6th seed to play, it's like,
What
oh,
if
you
they
wanted us.
lose?
Well, that's what makes
That's
it fun.
like-
Yeah, that's on them. They picked that team. So I don't know. That way you don't have teams dodging, and we need ways to incentivize the regular season. I know it would never happen, but
Yeah.
I'm all for it.
I think the Nuggets would pick the Kings of the teams in the play. I think that's just like
I agree.
they match up the best, and they probably beat them in 4 or 5. Honestly,
I just think that, whatever team comes out of the play-in in the West with the veteran postseason experience that they all have, And-
Literally all have.
they all have.
One
and-
series.
No, but I'm just saying,
everyone but the Kings at least has
yeah, but I mean, I still
crazy
think,
playoff.
yeah, but that was still like a gritty series.
No, I
last
understand.
year.
I understand. It's
like-
more than the Pelicans. I will give you.
Yeah,
that.
I'm just saying, like, if you take all those 4 teams, I just feel like it's kind of like iron sharpens iron. Like, all those 4 teams, they have experience of a gritty series in the playoffs, and then you beat one of those teams.
Except
Maybe you
for
could get on
Beal.
a roll. I mean, maybe you could get on a roll. So I don't think if you're the Wolves, I just don't think that you want to go up against that. I think you'd rather just get a standalone series with the Pelicans in the 3 versus 6, and I think the matchup will help you out there.
I agree. I think Timberwolves Pelicans is probably what they would like prefer. And I think I don't know. Like, would the Suns be favored to win a game against the Timberwolves? Possibly. I think it'd be really close.
You see, with you guys wanting Timberwolves to have, Timberwolves facing the Kings, who would you guys want the Thunder to face? And if they dropped down, if they went up to the 2 and Timberwolves did actually go to the 3rd?
Like who would be ideal for the Thunder?
Yeah.
No one, really.
I think it's the Suns. I think.
I
I
was
don't think
thinking the
anyone's
Suns.
Yeah,
I don't think
it's the
anyone's
least
ideal.
size
Yeah.
you'd have to deal with, which is still my big question with the Thunder.
You could put-
Everyone's saying it, but I wish they got a big at the deadline.
Yeah, you said that on our
Yeah.
deadline episode.
Like the Lakers would be my worst nightmare if I were the Thunder. And the Kings, they have size. So yeah, probably Phoenix. But even then, Durant, Booker in a series could just outscore you. It's tough for the West, but the East, it's funny, the East playing isn't even that great for the top 2 seeds.
really
Hey, the Bulls clinched the play-in, everyone.
Yeah.
They are a playoff team, possibly.
Seems like they're always denying.
I know.
With we're talking about the Nuggets, Oklahoma City. We're talking about everyone else. What do you guys think about the Mavs and the Clippers series? We haven't really touched that.
Yeah, I was just about to get that. For all the things I've gotten wrong, and there's a lot, the one thing I did get right is that when we were talking, I think it was actually like a month ago, as far back as a month ago, when we were talking about the playoff picture, I was saying Luka's odds are going to skyrocket once this Dallas team gets going. And they've been on an absolute tear, and that's exactly what happened. I mean, the odds still heavily favor Jokic, as they probably should, because there's not that much time to go in the regular season. But man, I mean, he just passed Shea, and at pretty, I think Shea's like 2,000. Luka's 550. I mean, that's a pretty massive jump to where they were a month ago.
You're right.
And I think that
He's not going to catch.
it's just
Jokic.
tough. I mean, I don't know. It's so tough to decide because I feel like that Jokic is so valuable to the Nuggets, and that's just an obvious statement. But I mean, if the Mavericks go far, Luka's so valuable too. It seems really hard to say that Jokic is minus 700 and Luka's plus 550.
Yeah, no, I think like the heavy odds are maybe a little too aggressive, but at the end of the day, this is kind of how the MVP works. I sort of agree with it. When there's an established top guy putting up great numbers and his team is, right now the 1 seed, that guy is just going to win even if there's this guy with, 20% better stats on the 5 seed. And it's not like, I understand Luka's numbers are crazy. Jokic is averaging a 26, 12, and 9 on like 58% shooting. So he is also having, A+ numbers, and the team record's better. I think if you were to do the eye test or just impact on winning and teammates, I think Jokic checks all those boxes. Luka does too, but the record is, 7.5 games worse. So I do, even though it is kind of lame, I do think it comes down to that, and I agree with the odds.
You see, who do you think values more on their team? Luka on the Mavs or Jokic on the Nuggets?
It's almost definitely Jokic.
Yeah.
There's not a true. I mean, Jamal Murray and MPJ like combined make a second star, but there's no like Kyrie real equivalent.
I think the 2 through 9 of the Nuggets is definitely better than the 2 through 9 for the Mavs, but I agree. I think if you were to flip them, which is always a fun exercise, the Nuggets honestly would be pretty close to where they are, but I think the Mavs would be much better. And I think Jokic, he's the best player for a reason. He has the most impact on winning. He makes everyone better. Aaron Gordon is now like a really viable quality starter, like 3rd best guy on a champion, potentially back-to-back, and that would not be the case if he wasn't playing next to Jokic. So
I think what makes it really difficult is that like it shouldn't be against Jokic just because the Nuggets are so good. I think that's a really tough part of the argument, that if you take Jokic away, it's like, oh, well, like, what would it look like? Like, they still have some other pieces and stuff like that. But I do think that the discrepancy in position is also a little bit harder. I think that Luka still gets his teammates involved more. I mean, he has more assists, So I feel like it's not like you can just say that, oh, the Mavericks are worse and Luka. I mean, objectively by the record, yes. And it's like, oh, like Luka's like scoring so much. I don't know. That's what I think.
I think it's like a next year. Like I could very easily see like a Shea versus Luka MVP battle next year. Because Jokic's not going to get a 4th MVP. I would be pretty surprised if the voters in the league really allow that to happen. That sort of puts him in that like untouchable, like LeBron territory that I don't think they're ready to crown yet.
I was about to say LeBron did do that 09, 2010, and then 2012 and 13. I think it could be possible just because of how good he is in the team, especially if they were to win again this year.
That's true.
And it further validates. But I also agree. I think the minute Luka has like a top 3 or 4 seed, he's going to get an MVP. Voters are kind of waiting for the excuse to give him the award. He's kind of been a preseason favorite for probably 3-4 years now. So all he needs to do, or the Mavs, I guess, get a top 3, maybe 4 seed, and I think the award's his.
And if the Thunder have this exact season next year, like they're like almost the 1st seed at worst, like the 2 or 3 seed, I think Shea probably does win MVP.
Mm-hmm.
Just because he's a year older, you're still averaging the same.
I just think that with like 7 games left for the Mavs, and it's kind of a mixed bag in terms of scheduling. I think that if they make a run and they catch the Clippers in the 4, it certainly makes the MVP argument more,
I agree.
More even, because I mean, Luka's just been a catalyst all year. Jokic has too, but I don't know. I guess it's just the difference in opinion of what you think an MVP is kind of going to do.
Yeah, I also think a factor is kind of recency bias, where the Nuggets have been really consistent the whole year. Jokic has always been there. It's almost, you get bored of it. Luka obviously has had the awesome stats, but the Mavs have really, gone up a level past 2-3 weeks. If they continue that, like Matt said, the rest of the season, their last 7 games, then suddenly you have, obviously the stats and all that, but you're fresh in your mind is the Mavs have been, winning all these games. They push to the 4 seed. It's at the front of your kind of memory, which would be a good thing for Luka. If that does happen, I would entertain the discussion, but I'm a Jokic guy. I'd still probably pick Jokic. So
I mean, I still think it is interesting taking a look. I mean, Jokic is on, one of the best teams in the league. But I still think that Embiid got an MVP with not necessarily being the top team in the league. And it still could change.
Yeah.
It still could change where the Nuggets, could fall back as far as third. And then it would be the same thing to where the Sixers were last year. I get that. But I don't know. It's just
the interesting thing last year, though, I think, was the Sixers were also obviously the voter fatigue with Jokic not wanting to give him 3, but the Sixers were the 3 seed, the Nuggets were the 1, but I think their records were really similar because the top of the East was better. And this year, obviously Denver, they're 7.5 games better than Dallas. So it's a more direct comparison than last year. But the precedent has kind of been shifted more recently with the Westbrook MVP with when Jokic won and Denver was the 6th seed. So it's one of those, it's not out of the realm of possibilities, but when there is a guy like Jokic putting up his numbers on the 1 seed, you kind of just default to that. If that didn't exist, you would probably give it to Luka. Maybe it'd be a Luka versus Shea. But
I think it's more that I believe there's a lot of voter regret from giving Embiid the MVP. I think people saw that playoff run and everyone was like, how is this guy not the MVP just because he won it 2 years in a row? That doesn't make any sense. Because of how bad Embiid was in the playoffs. And Luka's normally like an all right playoff performer. We've seen him not for very long. We've seen him a couple times. And I think it's not his year yet. And he's still very young and he will win it. I'm very sure he's going to win an MVP, maybe even multiple, but just not yet.
I just think that's something that's also really hard to tell, though, is like kind of the age discrepancy. So, like, if Jokic were to win an MVP this year because of the whole voter fatigue for last year, and Luka just plays solid, for the, next season, does it mean that he is, the biased front runner because Shea is so young?
That's interesting. I do think Shea has kind of gotten the short end of the stick because he is younger and because he isn't as big of a name and star. You almost need the kind of, this is unfair, but the establishing year as being a superstar, and especially if he does well in the playoffs. Then if he does this exact season next year and there isn't a guy who's like Luka's stats, but like a 4 seed, Shea would almost by default be MVP, but it's dumb, but you don't give it to him because he's so young, because you haven't seen him in the playoffs, which is unfair, but I feel like that's just almost the unwritten rules that the media play by.
Yeah, I mean, Jokic won his first MVP at 25, and I think Luka could win his first at 26. It's like essentially the same trajectory for both of them.
It just gets really hard to decide, because I feel like next year, like if Luka's solid and Shea's even a little bit better, the favor is still in Luka, if that kind of makes any sense, just because you could probably play that carousel game all day. Where and Jokic does deserve it. Obviously, that's not necessarily the topic of discussion. I just think it's the bias in terms of the voting.
And Shea is 25 as well, by the way. This is just his second year in like a major role.
Yeah, I more so meant like how many seasons that he's played, but I don't know. It is kind of interesting. I think that if the Mavs go far, I mean, if they kind of shock some people.
I got the Luka Doncic money line. I'm letting you know right now.
If they shock people outside Dallas, then maybe and the Nuggets somewhat get shocked as well. I don't know if that raises an argument about the playoffs.
Yeah, if it's sort of the same as the Sixers last year, like, oh, Denver lost in the first round somehow, and the Mavs win the finals. Like, oh, all right, Luka's gonna walk into the MVP.
Yeah, I don't know. All right. Well, we are at the buzzer, so we're gonna take turns. And usually this is the segment that I get things right on, not the 60-minute podcast. This is where I go to watch games that we're looking at as the regular season's winding down. Today, 7:30, Wednesday, Thunder Celtics. That's kind of the only game. But also, actually, no, I lied. Sorry.
Here's Cavs.
Thunder
Suns.
Celtics and Magic Pelicans for Wednesday. That's probably what I'm
I
doing.
like Magic Pelicans. I'm hopping on.
Why'd
I'm
you
Magic
say it like
Pelicans
that?
too.
And actually, yeah.
I like Magic Pelicans.
And
Why are you guys saying it like
yeah, I
that?
know. Okay, so so Thunder Celtics Wednesday, Magic Pelicans Wednesday, tomorrow. Actually, a really good slate moving forward. Kings Knicks tomorrow at 7:30. That'll be Thursday. 76ers Heat, the East as well, and also Nuggets Clippers. So there's a lot. There's probably like 5 games that I'm watching. Unless you guys,
No, you hit all of them.
Yeah.
The one I point out is obviously Magic versus Pelicans. Those are kind of the 2 teams I was defending this podcast, kind of the John Bowl, which is fun. But then tomorrow, the one I'm really excited for is Sixers at Heat,
yeah,
7:30. We talked the first 20 minutes about playing implications in
Right.
the East. That
right.
will almost decide.
With Embiid back.
Yes,
too.
with Embiid back, that will almost decide. The Heat win, Embiid, they're probably kind of putting him in Saran wrap a little bit or bubble wrap. But if the Sixers win, they probably go on more of a push. So really excited for that one.
Ethan, chop. Anything
Yeah,
to say?
I mean, I just agree with the Magic Pelicans. I think that's a good one. And I
we
mean,
know you do.
Dallas Houston could have been good if Houston kept it up, and
Yeah,
I guess
that's
it
a good
still
point.
matters just for putting that extra distance in there. So I like that one as well. High scoring affair there. That's sort of the only 2 I'm looking at. Philly, Miami. I like as well. Miami has a very pivotal week coming up. They gotta stay hot. Sixers, and then on the 7th they play the Pacers, and that sort of decides their playoff run.
All right. Well, that's gonna wrap it up for this week's episode, or this week's episode.
Oh,
Yeah,
no
I was
show,
like-
no next Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah, no show, no. Oh gosh, okay.
So it'll be a
I'm
week.
losing my speech ability. But yeah, that's gonna wrap it up for today on the Make It Take It podcast. If you make it, you take it. I've been your host, Matthew Byrne, today, joined by John Yaley, Ethan Mazel, Jay Smile pushing the buttons for us. Thank you very much, and we will see you next week.